Welcome back to Mr. Wickland's Virtual Classroom. We're moving into a new unit today. What we're going to be looking at is we're looking at measurement. And what we're going to look at is we're going to look at a thing called elapsed time, which means how much time has passed between two certain points, and the 24-hour clock, which is used in the military and airports like to use it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at those two things specifically. With elapsed time, basically what I said is elapsed time is the time between activities. For instance, if we said that Bob got up at 7:15 a.m. and he ate at 7:30, how much time elapsed? So how much time went by between when Bob got up and when he ate? Well, if you look at my clock here, I've got it set for 7:15, and I also have a watch so you can actually tell the time. And so what we normally do is we will take a look at this and we will say, okay, so at 7:15 Bob gets up. Now how would you count to 7:30? Well, most of us would probably just take a look at our watch, take a look at the clock, and here's 7:15, 7:20, 7:25, and 7:30, because remember, each one of these little numbers, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or the hour numbers, represents 5 minutes. Okay, so you have, there's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Okay, or 0, because we're starting over again. So it's just a simple review. So we start at 7:15 and we're going to move to 7:30. So you just follow along. So I move to the 4. 5 minutes has elapsed. Okay, 10 minutes has elapsed. So how much time has elapsed when I get to the 7:30? 15 minutes has elapsed. Okay, so here's what it says. So we start our next problem, and it says that Bob brushed his teeth at 7:40 and he got to school at 8:30. How much time has elapsed? So looking at my watch, we start at 7:40, we want to go to 8:30. Okay, so simple way to do it is just to count up by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, keep going, 45, 45, 50. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So 50 minutes. What if it's more than 50 minutes? What if it was 70 minutes? How would we write that? So we got 50, so then there's 55, 60, 65, 70. So 70 minutes has passed by. How would we write 70 minutes? Now, you could write it 70 minutes, and I'm just going to do it at the top of the page. But we also know that there's 60 minutes in an hour. So if there's 60 minutes in an hour, we also have 1 hour. And how many minutes would be left over? So if we subtract 60, we would have 10 minutes left over. So 1 hour, 10 minutes. Okay, that's going to be important to remember, guys. And remember, there is only 60 minutes in an hour. There's only 60 seconds in a minute, not 100. So if you get caught subtracting, then you can't think of it as 100. You're going to have to do some other math calculations in order to get it to this point. So if you get 70 minutes, or if you had 100 minutes, that does not equal 1 hour. 100 minutes does not equal an hour. There's 60 minutes in an hour. So how many hours and minutes would that be? Well, I know that 60, so if we divide, I know that there's an hour in there. So you have 1 hour. 100 minus 60 leaves us with, if I do my subtraction, 40 minutes. Okay, that's how you would do 100 minutes in time. Okay guys, because this is going to be very important as we move along. 120 minutes, so 60 minutes is an hour. 120 minutes is 2 hours. 180 minutes is 3 hours. So 100 minutes doesn't equal 1 hour. Okay, that's very important to know. Okay, there's another way where we can find elapsed time. So it says Bob's math class begins at 9:18 and lunch recess is at 12:30. How much time elapses between the beginning of math and lunch recess? Well, if I do this, and you've used this for rounding with money, I have 9:18 right here. What I want to do is I want to round to the nearest hour. So if I take my watch, I'm going to put it up to 9:18. So I have it at 9:18 right now. Okay? And so I'm going to go 2 minutes to the nearest 5. Okay, so 2. So then I can go 5, 10, 15. I go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, plus the 2 that I added on. So how many minutes was that? 42 minutes. The nearest hour is 10 o'clock. Okay, now I can go until lunch recess. So I'm at an even hour, and I know lunch recess is at 12:30. Well, how much time has passed between that? So how many hours? Well, if I'm at, again, let's look at my watch. I'm at 10 o'clock. Well, how many hours is it to 12? 1, 2. And then how many minutes to 30? 30. Then what I want to do is I want to add these together. So if I add these together, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get 2 hours, and because 30 plus 42 is 72 minutes. Now, what did I tell you about time? 72 minutes. So we have more than an hour here because 60 minutes is an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have the right calculation. So how much time has passed? Because if you take a look at this, 9:18, you can go on your fingers, 10:18, 11:18, 12:18. I know I have 3 hours at least. And then how many minutes are left over? If I subtract 60 because of the hour, I am left with 12 minutes. So 3 hours and 12 minutes. Okay guys, it's simple in the fact that we're just dealing with time, but it's complicated in the fact that you need to constantly remember that with time there's only 60 minutes, and that kind of what we're doing is we're regrouping kind of like what we do with our tens, except we're regrouping when we get more than 60, because we can't have more than 60. The maximum we can have is 59 minutes. Once we hit the 60 mark, we need to regroup. We need to add another hour, and then when we add another hour, we take 60 off the minutes, just as I've done. That's elapsed time. Time in between events. That's what elapsed time means. Time in between events. What we're going to look at next is we're going to look at the 24-hour clock. Okay, the 24-hour clock is very simple in its concept. You're used to the 12-hour clock. Okay, if you look at my watch, you're going to notice that the 12 is missing. Okay, but this is a 12-hour clock because the only numbers you see are 1 through 12. Okay, now the 24-hour clock begins at midnight. So the 24-hour clock starts at midnight. And what I mean by when it starts at midnight, it starts at 00:00. Okay? If we were looking at the 12-hour clock, midnight would be 12 a.m. Now you guys have seen AM and PM because you're familiar with the 12-hour clock. The 24-hour clock doesn't have AM or PM. You don't use it at all. You do not use AM or PM. What you do is you just continue with the clock. So try and follow me here, okay? So midnight is 0000. That is midnight with the 24-hour clock, starting right here. So if you look at my little legend right here, the black is AM. So midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 a.m. Now, when we get to noon, what we get to is we get to 12. Okay, noon is 12. So if I were to write that down here, okay, noon is 12. Okay, it's pretty simple. So if noon is 12, then what would 1 be? What would 1 be? Well, 1 would be 13. So basically what you do is you add, if you want 1 p.m., add 12 to it, and that will give you 13. So like I said in our legend, PM is red up here. Okay, so if I say 2 p.m. in the 12-hour clock, 2 p.m. equals 14, and we call it 1400. Equals 1400. So if that's the case, what would 5 p.m. be? Well, we take a look at 5. 5 plus 12. So I'm just going to do it on the margin here. 12 plus 5 equals 17. So it would be 1700. I take a look at 5. I look over 17. Okay? That's the 12-hour clock. It's not very difficult. It's just you need to remember that instead of going to PM, you go to 13. So you'll notice in the classroom, maybe not with our clock, but you're going to notice in some classrooms or some clocks where they have the little red numbers underneath, and those red numbers represent the 24-hour clock. Like I said, 24-hour clock is very useful to know, because you may get plane tickets, you may get train tickets. Military uses 24-hour clock. So let's go through some examples. So what did we say? 3 p.m. So we have our clock, 3 p.m. So we know 1 is 13, 14, 15. And it's just written just like that, 1500. So 15, 2.00. You could even just write it like that, 1500. Okay? But I recommend that you use the colon. All right? So we're looking at 7 a.m. What would 7 a.m. be? Well, 7 a.m. is just 0, 7, 0, 0. 7 a.m. That's it. So a.m. is just written pretty much the same. p.m. is when you have to add 12. Okay? So let's take a look at some other examples. 12-hour clock. So you have 7:36 a.m. Well, take a look at our clock. 07 36. That's it. Okay, now we take a look here. We have 1421. Okay, so 1421. If I subtract 12 from 14, so I take 12 away, I end up with 2:21. Now, would that be AM or PM? As soon as you go past 12 here, it's always PM. Okay, those after 12, PM. So we got 3:43 AM. How do we write that? Zero three 43. 3:43 0343. Okay? Now, you have 0626. So when you have 06, what's the indicator? Less than 12 means AM. 6:26 AM. 7:46 PM. So we look at 7 plus 12 is 19. 1946. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a look at some airport times. Okay, just simple airport times. So this is the 12-hour clock. This is going to be the 24-hour clock. And let's figure it out. So we're going to leave Vancouver at 9 a.m. according to 12-hour clock. What is that with the 24-hour clock? Okay, what you might hear is 0900, right? 0900. Okay, 4:30 a.m. 4:30 a.m. 4 is 04, and the minutes. Okay, 3:30 p.m. You can use the clock. 3 p.m. is red. Go across, or I add 12. I get 15:30. What I'd like to do is I'd like you to just try and just figure out in your head on your own the last 4. What would it be in the 24-hour clock? Remember, when it says PM, you add 12. Okay? That's the only difference between the 12-hour clock and the 24-hour clock, is you just add 12. Unless it's AM, then it's just written pretty much the same way. Okay? Except you put the 0 in front if you need to. Alright? That's elapsed time and 24-hour clock. This is Mr. Wicklum signing off.